I think it was the second big show we had after anything in the Dragon Ball franchise. It was the one that was after that that was more than 12, 24, or 30 episodes that we worked on. The process for that show was fitting for that time period in that it wasn't always in one booth and it didn't always have one director. Sometimes they would get caught up with Dragon Ball or Dragon Ball Z or GT or whatever, and this booth would be out of something to work on, so like, cool, we're both going to work on Yu Yu Hakusho for a while. Yu Yu Hakusho probably had at least 5 or 6 voice directors throughout it, with Justin Cook being the overall in charge guy who would look over it like, hey, good job on this, except for he would never say that, and this person would never use this type of, colloquialism, so let's go through and pick these lines up. It was a fun process, and it's, for a lot of the stuff that was recorded in the late 90s and early 2000s, for my personal mindset of what I think, when something looks tight and sounds good, it's hard for me to watch some of that stuff from 14, 15 years ago because we've come so far in our performance and the technology used to record and whatever else that it looks like to me, it doesn't look like it matches quite as well as it does now. Or the performances are always good, but it's mostly the technical stuff. Like, oh, we missed that pause, oh, there was a double clap, or there was this. And it's stuff that most folks, like you guys, if you're just watching it and everyone sounds, sounds the way that you want them to and they're performing good, you're not going to notice this stuff. It's just little nitpicky stuff that I see because that's what I do all day. But it was definitely fun to work on, and I enjoyed it. And I enjoyed directing on it too, a little bit, the few times I got to direct that show. Yes!
Were there any distinct production difficulties between Full Metal Brotherhood and the regular one?
Production difficulties. No. The challenges for Brotherhood versus the first series were, some of them were innate. Like, some of them, I can't freeze Aaron Dismuke in time. And I can't make his voice sound like he did when he was 11 if he's 17 years old. So there was that. There was, a recasting of Al. There was a couple of other people who didn't live in town anymore, like the gentleman who played Breda and Danny Clark who played Scar. I think were the 2 characters that come to mind immediately. That it wasn't going to work out to have them be in the show again. Oh, and Scott McNeil for Hohenheim. It wasn't going to be convenient for Scott to fly down 5 billion times to work on Brotherhood. So there was those recastings, and much like anyone else as a viewer, I'm not a huge fan of recasting when something like that happens. But at least in this case, it wasn't like in the middle of the show.
Yeah.
It wasn't like suddenly everyone had a different voice. So there was those challenges. The challenge also, especially to make it through those earlier episodes, of making the material interesting for people who have already seen that part of the story, those first 12 or 13 episodes, where you're like, oh, that's what they drew. There's very little difference. It was just like, oh, they introduced Father for 5 minutes. Otherwise, it's a lot of the same thing that happened in 1 through 24 or 25 of the first series, minus the filler stuff. So making that material interesting again, both from the writing aspect and from the performance aspect, was a bit of a challenge. But then after that, the challenge was just, the challenge was to try to make it as good as the original performances in the Japanese track. Because that show is fantastic. I love Brotherhood so much, and those performances are great. And everyone really, once again, everyone always brings their A game to the table. But you can tell a little bit of a difference when people are trying super, super, super hard to make something the best they can possibly be, or being really self-critical and wanting to do things over and over again. And that's a lot of what Brotherhood was like. Yes!
Can you shed any insight on when we might get a dubbed version of the Battle of the Gods in the Dragon Ball Z movie?
No one's ever asked that question, either in person or online, ever. No idea. I have no idea on the Dragon Ball movie, and I have no idea on the third Ava movie. There's no news. I wish there was news. There's no news. And if there is news, then they're not telling me the news because they know that I go to these events like, don't tell anybody. I'm like, which part? Which part can I talk about? Okay, just don't tell them anything. That's safest. Ah! So, no news. Looking at each other. Yes!
I
script writing, like the other ones that have come out?
New stuff. Let's see. New stuff. Let's see. There's a few new shows that I'm working on as a voice actor.
Can you tell us?
I don't think I can because the casting hasn't been announced yet. But I don't know. I'm trying to think of it. Is there anything? Huh?
It's only between us and that camera.
Yeah, that camera. Everyone who's doing this. Like, immediately like, I have to post this panel! I can't think of anything that I can talk about offhand. I'll throw hints out. There, a series that Funimation recently released has a follow-up film. And I did not work on the series, but I directed the film. So, do some math and some calculations and figure that one out. And it was fun. Beyond that, lots of One Piece stuff. Still working on lots of One Piece.
It never ends.
Yeah, it doesn't.
There's like 800 something episodes in Japan out right now.
Currently, there's just under 600. But being that we're working on up to about 300, we're halfway through what exists, and what exists is halfway of what's in the author's mind.
So,
yes.
800 episodes. That's a nice ballpark.
I think it's going to hit 1,000.
Right.
I think One Piece is going to hit 1,000 episodes. And I have my own version of the ending of One Piece. You guys want to hear it? This is what I think happens at the end of One Piece. Luffy and the Straw Hats, and however many Straw Hats they have by that point, like 12 Straw Hats by then, they find the end of the Grand Line, and it actually is like an island with a treasure chest, right, that Goldie Roger put there. They open it up, they dig the treasure chest up, they open it up, and there's a big red button in it, and Luffy's like, hey, what does this do? And pushes it, and then the first episode starts over again. And then everyone in Japan riots and burns down buildings. Man, everyone would hate that so much. I'm robbed! Years of my life. But outside of that, I can't think of much else. I'm working on a few other games. It's mostly DLC content to games that already exist. I continue to work on some Borderlands stuff from time to time. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. McFarland. Are there any, as an ADR director, are there any productions that were particularly difficult?
Particularly difficult. Yeah, there are a lot. I mean, each thing has its own challenges, right? So, with most shows, it's finding the balance between getting good performance and overdoing it. With lots of anime is very melodramatic, the way that it's drawn and the way the music is presented and stuff like that. So if you do a completely realistic performance, it sounds boring. It sounds like you are not trying hard enough. But it's like really, someone could be doing a fantastic job, but if on screen is, and you're not as big as that person, or as big as what that character is doing, then it sounds like you're asleep. So finding that nice, pushing everything beyond reality level of melodrama without it being ridiculous is a nice balance, and that's a challenge. Sometimes addressing the way a show is going to go tonally is a challenge, like Italia, trying to find the nice middle ground of, this is obviously a comedy, and there's obviously some offensive stuff in it. How far do we want to go down that path? With that, how close do we want to stick to the translation for the jokes versus the historical content? How is all this going to play out? Finding all those sorts of paths can be a difficult task. The casting, there could be someone who would be perfect for the part, but if they've been perfect for that type of part 20 times in the past 10 years, then are they really perfect for that part? Because someone will be like, I'm tired of hearing this person. But the flip side of the argument could be, but they're a billion times better at that type of role than anyone you could throw up there. So where do we draw the line at that type of thing? There are all sorts of different challenges you face. I wouldn't say any one more than another was more difficult, but they all have different types of challenges. Yes?
I'd imagine voice casting handles a lot of this, but how
It kind of depends, because I don't know. It depends on how you want to approach it. Like, I don't always think it's fair to judge actors, voice actors that way, because we don't judge on-camera actors that way ever. You know, we don't go into a movie with, I don't know, let's say Brad Pitt. Like, oh, I can't watch this anymore. All I can think of him is in Seven, or I can just think of him in Fight Club. I can't see it as anyone else. Oh, every line sounds like that guy from Fight Club. People don't do that. They just like, oh, cool, it's Brad Pitt. I like him. Let's go see his movie. The voice actors are like, oh, it's that guy again. He always sounds the same. Blah, blah, blah. So it's not always like, I think it's an unfair thing to be judged on, especially with anime where you're not called on to be Mel Blanc a lot. Like, it's not that type of character performance over and over where it's huge and broad. But there is something to be said for it where you like, you know, you heard someone as the lead in some series for 100 episodes, 200 episodes, and they, you know, you were 100% invested in that type of voice, and then you hear that same voice on some other show. It is hard to break it. It ties in with the answer to that last question I had. The problems I have with that, the challenges I face with that are, what is the right choice? Because that voice coming out of that character sounds right, but there's also the aspect of people are so used to hearing that voice come out of some other character that it might throw them off or pull them out of the show. But my second place choice for that character is not as good. How do I approach that sort of thing? Like, what's the challenge with that? What I frequently do with actors like that, where their voice is so super recognizable, is I try to rotate them out. You know, you will be the lead in this show for a while. I like working with you. Come in and audition for me again. I may have you as a supporting cast member on some other show and give it a little bit of a break before you're the lead again in something. It's not like we sit around and, like, you know, make them take turns. But for me, I tend to do that. Like, you know, Vic hasn't worked with me as the lead in anything except for Full Metal Alchemist, but he was, you know, great in that. He was fantastic in Full Metal Alchemist. But I also haven't had a show that really suits his voice for anything else that I've worked on in some time. He's been in One Piece from time to time, and may be in it again. But, you know, I think the closest thing I would have had was, he did audition for Eden at the East, but I didn't have anything for him in that. So, stuff, things, talkings. Yes!
What was the strangest thing that happened to you at a convention? You stole my
Strangest?
question again.
I don't know. There's, let's see. There's weird stuff to sign. You know, signing flesh. I've signed babies before. I think that's weird. It's on a baby's head. Let's see. Sign casts. Sign electronics that were probably several $100s. I had my face licked once. Yeah, that's what I thought too. Someone was having me sign something, and they were very meek and quiet. And I said, "Could you?" Sure. What's up? What? They told me to come here, so I was like, you know, trying to listen into what they were saying. And when I do that, I never look at them. I kind of like, you know, look off to the side and just listen up. And I'm like, I'm just gonna lick on the side of my face. I'm like, oh, that's not cool. What else? That's most of it. Signing babies and licking. That's plenty weird, huh? Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure how much of a say you have in the matter.
Okay.
But I know that a lot of different cast members have covered Dragon Soul for Kai.
Yeah.
And do you know if there's a possibility of having, like, an octet, like a marathon song, instead of all the different covers?
Instead of one, like use little bits of other ones or have them come in. I'm sure it's possible. I didn't have anything to do with that production. I think at one point I was going to be one of the singers, and it just turned out that, like, here, try this. Cool, I'm ready. Oh, we forgot that we asked you. We got it done over here now. Oh, okay. So, not me. So maybe I'll sing some other one in the future. As far as, like, mixing that up, I think that's a cool idea. I know that it's been talked about before, so it's not the first time the ideas come up, so it's a good idea. So let's see if it happens. Yes!
It's like Eden of the East. I remember watching it, and it takes a little while to get like the plot concept. So were you ever like confused at some point and just said, whoa, 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 what is going on?
No, I wasn't, but I mean, I like that kind of show. Like, it takes you till about, the show itself is only, what, like 11 episodes, 12 episodes?
Yeah.
Something like that. It takes you to about episode 5 to go like, oh, this is what's going on, and the back half is continuing that plot line. I like that. I don't want to know everything by like the second or third episode. As far as being confused, no more so than what was intended. You know, the creators threw out hints here and there of what was going to happen, and you know, especially when you watch through the second or third time, you're like, oh wow, oh this, oh that, and you see more things knowing what the outcome is going to be. But it's like that with anything, with any movie you could watch that is sort of like a mystery thriller, figuring things out type film. So, no more confused than what was intended. Yes.
Well, if you didn't do voice work, what would you do?
I don't know. Failed rock star. I like directing and producing enough to where if I was never cast as anything again, I would still take a lot of pleasure and fun and fulfillment in just that aspect of it. But if I was going to completely not do this type of work at all, I don't know. I've invested so much of my life into acting and performing and producing and directing that I'm not sure what I would do. I'd have to take a big piece of like life ginger and clear the palate and figure something out. Because I don't know what would happen. It'd be horrible to have that forced on me and find out. I think the initial thing was I would be a waiter until I would figure out what I was going to do so I could have some money coming in. That's it's a good way to make a decent amount of money with the skill set of just being friendly and quick.